let's take a quick look at Learning Check 3 and some of the areas that may have been a little bit trickier for you during this module. So the first set of questions refers to the Health of Non-Hispanic Asian Adults Data Brief from the CDC. So a little bit of a comment about the CDC Data Briefs. This is basically what your data brief will end up looking like with your team. Obviously, it won't be as slick or as formatted, but it will follow the same structure. And you will be doing parts of this throughout the semester with your team. There's no individual data brief. It's a team data brief. You don't have to box out your key findings, but you will have to share your key findings. You'll have an introductory paragraph, and then basically it will be question, summary statistics, graph. Question, results, graph. So it basically follows the same format. You'll be asked to do 4 bivariate analyses. So you'll have some summary of the cohort, then you'll ask the questions about percentages, disagreeing or agreeing. Is this percentage higher in that group than that group? And then you'll have graphs. Now your graphs, this is a fairly simple one, so your graphs might look a little bit more like this, or they might be a little more complex depending upon the questions you've chosen. So let's specifically look at what Learning Check 3 covered here. So in the first question for this data brief, identify the irregularity that affects the interpretation and comparison of the figures in this data brief. So you can take a look at the types of graphs and first take a look that they all have a US total. And in this first one, it goes 0 to 18%. Then there's all Asians together, and then they've broken out the non-Hispanic Asian by subgroup. And interestingly, it's not in any particular order here. And if you take a look at the next graph, now we have a y-axis that goes from 0 to 30. Now we have a y-axis that goes from 0 to 30. Our US total is still blue, our all Asian is still dark green, and then these are all in the same order still, but our axis has changed. Let's take a look at the next one. Oh, here our axis goes from 0 to 4. Here our axis goes from 0 to 4. And if we look at the others, we've got 0 to 7 and 0 to 5. Herein lies the problem with this particular type of change of axis. So let me open up another one of these and take it out so that we can look at them in side-by-side comparison. So let's take a look at the second graph here compared to this graph here. So this is our second graph, and you can see that it goes from 0 to 30 on the left axis, and this one goes from 0 to 5. But if you look at the graphs, the height of the bars looks the same. The height of the bars looks the same. The pattern's a little bit different, but the height of the bars makes you think that the US total in both figures is the same. And it's not. It's 24.1% on the left side graph, 3.9% in the right side graph. It is incredibly important when you are presenting on the same set of data with the same percentage outcome that you use a consistent y-axis. It doesn't need to be from 0 to 100, but it should be the largest one, which I believe is 0 to 30. So all of the figures should have been 0 to 30, and they all should have had the same increment. This one's going by 1 point, this is going by 2, the one on the next page goes by 5. So their axes and their graphs are not consistently reported. So make sure to keep that in mind. You want things to be simple for your readers. The rest of the questions on this are questions to pull from the data in the brief. If you have specific questions about those answers, let me know. And then the next part is, again, working with our BRFIS data set here. So we've got our subset of BRFIS data, and this so far only has the general health category recoded from the prior learning check. And the very first question here talks about days of poor physical health and days of poor mental health. And we have a variable physical health and a variable mental health. So again, what I need to go back to is to look at the code book. I am going to go into edit and find, and I'm going to type in PHYS physical health, which I've searched for before. And you can see here in the code book that it is on page 13. Here is the question. Now, thinking about your physical health, which includes physical injury, illness or injury, and how many days during the past 30 days was your physical health not good? It is asking for a numeric response. We need a number. We need a number out of 30. If we look at the code book, we can see that 1 to 30 came in as those responses. Zeros, interestingly, come in as an 88. That's what the none is. 77s and 99s are those that are not answered. They're not answered. And then the blank, it either wasn't asked or missing. And for physical health, it's a small number for that one. But for the 77s and 99s, they're not providing us days. This first question asks us which variable has more cases with missing values? You can actually get that answer from the code book. Mental health is actually right below physical health. So if you scroll down and look at both of the number of days here, you can then see what this looks like from the code book. Get them both here in the same. So we're looking at 7,664 that didn't know or were not sure, 2,078 that refused, and one that was missing. And in this case, down here in mental health, we have 5,204 and 2,204. So this makes 408. And we already have more missing here. So let's go back to the code book. Let's go back to the code book and the data set and recode physical health and mental health. If you've already done this, then you can skip forward in this video, but I'll select physical health and I will go into column information and I will recode. And remember, with numeric missing, it's a dot. We need to leave the dot in here for the one missing. We need to go down to the 88s and make that a 0. Remember, it's 88 is none for both of these variables. And then the 77 is missing and the 99 is missing. And I'm going to make this phys health days, and I'm going to save it as a formula column, and I'm going to press recode. So you can see that here. You can see that here. Same thing for mental health. Columns, column info, columns and recode. And we don't have any already missing here, so we simply need to do the 88s as 0. My 77s as a dot. My 99s as a dot. Save this as a formula column. Mental health days. And press recode. And these are both numeric values here again. Both numeric values. If you look over in the left side columns menu, there's this plus sign. If I hit the plus sign, it will bring up the formula. So you can see here, it's going to look for physical health. If it's a 77, it's missing. If it's an 88, it's a 0. If it's a 99, it's missing. Otherwise, we're just going to use their days response. That's why I saved the formula column. It will help you remember how things were recoded. So now that I have both of these recoded, first of all, I want to make sure and save my data. And now I'm just going to select both columns and do Analyze and Distribution. And press OK. Now, Jump automatically brings you up a vertical histogram. If it's easier for you to look at the horizontal histogram, it's under the red arrow. I'm going to hold down the Command key. On a Windows machine, it's the Control key. And what I do for one window will do for both. So under the red arrow, histogram options vertical, I'm going to uncheck that. And it's going to bring both of them to be horizontal for me. So you can take a look now that our minimum value goes from 0 up to 30. So our question, remember, is out of the prior 30 days. So 0 to 30. You could do the math yourself here. So we knew what our total number was if I add these up. The 157,570 plus 274, 143 plus 76664 plus 2078 plus 1 would have given me the 441,456 total sample size. But these now, remember, are all missing. And if I add those up, I will get this number. And the same thing for the mental health days. So here are our distributions. We can go back here. Which of the following on question 5, which of the following accurately describes the shape of the distribution of the recoded days of poor physical health? So poor physical health, you're asked for, you can mark all that apply. So skewed, uniform, symmetric, bimodal, unimodal, or skewed to the right. Skewed left, skewed right. We know this isn't symmetric. This clearly is not symmetric. We have many more zeros. There is an argument to be made this to be bimodal. There's a mode and potentially the second mode. So if you checked bimodal and that was counted off incorrectly in the reflections, justify why you think these could be considered bimodal. Just answer that question. Skewed left versus skewed right. You can watch the video on distributions in Module 3. It's obviously not uniform. It's obviously not symmetric. And then you need to pick bimodal or unimodal. And if it was checked incorrectly, reflect on and justify your choice. So now let's move on and look at question 6. Examine the distribution of days of poor mental health and report either the 5-number summary or the mean and standard deviation and explain why you chose that distribution. So if you go back to Module 3 and watch the video on distributions, and then also now in Module 4, there's a review on the 5-number summary, and we get into more looking at normal distributions, you can see for both of these distributions, they are not symmetric. When you look at a normal distribution, it is symmetric. And in fact, if I asked JUMP here to plot a normal distribution that had this mean and standard deviation, so it had a mean of 4.3 and a standard deviation of 8.8, JUMP will actually put that, what that normal curve would look like. And you can see it's really flat. It's got a wide standard deviation. And we have this huge bar over here and this huge bar over here. This is not normally distributed. This data, as we are showing it here, does not follow along this red curve. You can see that it is not symmetric, and therefore mean and standard deviation is probably not the best choice to describe this data. In fact, at least 50% of people have 0 responses. And so the median with maybe the IQR and the min and the max is likely the most appropriate summary for that. So now we can take a look at the recode diagram. So moving from those distributions back to the data here for general health. Recode, fill in the following recode diagram to recode general health variable to an indicator for fair or poor health. So what would number 1 be? What would number 1 be? So go back to the general health variable, which is also on page 13, and look at the value. Number 1 becomes what? Is excellent a fair or poor health? No, it's not. It is not fair or poor. So given these options, a missing, a 0, or a 1, a missing, a 0, or a 1, you want to put everything that is excellent, very good, and good into one category, everything that is fair and poor into another category, and all of the missings into the same category. So take a look back at that. I have recoded it in words here. And you could simply do that, but you could also set this to be a 1 and this to be a 0. So everybody that is good, very good, or excellent is in one category. Everyone that is fair and poor is in another category, and all of the rest are set to missing. The next question looks at race and ethnicity. Which group has the highest percentage of reporting fair or poor health? That means you have to go to the race ethnicity column. You have to go to the race ethnicity column. And if I simply do a distribution on race and ethnicity, it's coming in as numeric and it's giving me a mean race. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Obviously, this variable needs to be recoded as well. So where do I go? I go back to our Burfus codebook. Go back to our Burfus codebook, edit, find, and type in race, and it will take me down to the race variable. So this is not quite the right race variable. You see it's coming up as underscore CRACE1. So I need to be more specific. Find me the underscore race variable. Here it is on page 110. Here it is on page 110. The underscore race variable, the underscore race variable. So you would recode this. We'll go back into race, columns, recode. I've got 1 through 9 options here, and I'm going to recode this to make it meaningful for me. Formula column, I can call this race categories, and number 1 is white only. And it's going to say, do you want to convert this to character? And the answer is yes. So now 2 is black. And so if you want to include that it's non-Hispanic, we could do black non-Hispanic, and I can go down here to the whites and do white non-Hispanic. The 3s are American, Indian, Alaska Native, non-Hispanic. Our 4s are Asian, non-Hispanic. Our 5s are Native, Hawaiian, other Pacific Islander, not Hispanic. Our 6 are other race, non-Hispanic. Our 7s are multi-race, non-Hispanic. Our 8s are Hispanic Latino, however, you can remember what that is. And the 9 is don't know. So you can call that don't know, unknown, whatever makes sense to you, or refused. So don't know, not sure, or refused in this case is not the same as missing a race category. Remember, it's not the same as missing. This is informative missing. I don't know what race I am. I'm not sure, or I refused. So for now, we're going to leave it as its own category, and I'm going to press recode. And then, of course, since I've recoded this, I want to make sure that I've recoded it correctly. The best way to do that in JUMP, I'll select both columns and go to the tables menu, do summary, put them in group, and press OK. And now it'll bring up a table here that shows me that my whites are white non-Hispanic 336,066, 333,066. I can spot check others non-Hispanic 1945, so you can see here, and here's my don't knows. So just make sure that your recategorization matches the code book. Again, to do that, I've selected both columns, tables, summary, put both of them under group, and press OK. And I can see that my recode worked. You can also do a distribution on both of them if you want at the same time. And what you would do then is for the ones, check here, and it will highlight the correct number of white non-Hispanics. I can click on 2 here. Those are all my black non-Hispanics, and the number is correct here, and the number is correct there. So there's multiple ways you can check, but make sure you check. So back to the learning check. Oh, first, let me save so that I don't have to recode race, because it's a long recode. The question is, which race ethnicity has the highest percentage reporting of fair or poor health? So I need to know by race, what is the fair, poor health? So by race. So I'm going to go into Analyze Distribution. I am going to use my good, fair, or whatever indicator variable you did. If you did 0s and 1s, that's fine. Just make sure that your 0s and 1s are categorical, that they're categories, so that you're getting percentages. And then I'm going to do this by my race category. So general health, good, fair, by my race category, and press OK. And you'll see here in my distributions that I now have for AIAN, so American Indian, Alaska Native, non-Hispanic, my proportion of fair and poor health is 29.0%. So I've got a probability here, which goes from 0 to 1, 0.290. A proportion would be 29.0% is my AIAN. So I can just start myself a list. Right now, this is the one to beat. This is 29% in fair or poor health. My Asian, fair or poor health is 10, so it's not the highest. Black, non-Hispanic, it's 25.9, so it's close, but still doesn't beat 29%. Fair, poor, 22 for the don't knows. For Hispanic, Latino, 28, it's close, but AIAN, remember, was 29. Got 23% here, 21% here, 21% here, and finally, our final category, the white non-Hispanics, are 16. So nothing beat the American Indian Alaska Native non-Hispanic with the highest percentage of fair poor. So here you go. That's how you find it. Again, I want to do a distribution of my good versus fair poor, and I want to do it by race and press OK. So there you go. And it will give you what you need. Okay, scrolling down here now to question 9. Which race ethnicity has the lowest percentage reporting limited activities due to physical, mental, or emotional problems? Okay, limited activities. Well, let's go in here and say, it doesn't look like I have a variable called limited activities. Sex orients, probably sexual orientation. We've already dealt with add sleep. This looks like something to do with age, education, income. So this seems to be the only variable I haven't looked at. So I am going to copy that variable name. I'm going to go back to my Burfus codebook, and I am going to search out that variable name. It's on part of demographics on page 28. Are you limited in any ways in activities because of physical, mental, or emotional problems? Has the lowest percentage reporting limited activities. So this is a yes or no question. You need to recode this. I'm not going to do this. You recode it, yes, no, don't know, or refused, blank or missing. So you can simply recode it to yes, no. In this case, because they're answering, I know, yes or no. Again, recode it, analyze on this variable by race, and look for the lowest percentage. It follows the same steps as we just did looking at the good, fair, or poor. Question 10, blank has the lowest average days of poor mental health while blank group has the highest average days. So let's see what our group options are. Again, there's only 4 racial options here. So of these 4, what is the lowest? And of these 4, what is the highest average days? Again, we have already recalculated or recoded the mental health days and the physical health days. And now I want to look at it by race. Analyze. Distribution, days physical health, days mental health, by race categories. You're going to get a very large amount of information here, but basically it's going to tell you for AIAN non-Hispanic, and the average is the mean. The average is the mean, what their mean average is. And then just scroll through to find the lowest average out of these 4, and scroll through to find the highest mean value out of those 4. So again, analyze distribution on the physical health days and mental health days by race. So if I go back into JUMP, analyze distribution, and I need my physical health days, my mental health days, and I want to look at it by race. Press OK. If you are getting percentages out of your physical health and mental health days, that means you have it listed as a categorical variable. I can tell over here that I have a numeric variable because there's a blue triangle next to physical health days. So make sure that it's not nominal, that it's not ordinal, that it's a numeric value. So that will get you question 10. Then it wants to know by gender. Are there gender differences in physical and mental health? So look at the same 4 variables as you did above. So we want to look at the good and fair health. We want to look at the quality days that we've recoded. We want to look at physical health and mental health days by gender. Sex here is listed as a 1 and a 2. If I go to analyze distribution and do a distribution on sex, it's going to tell me my average sex is 1.6. That doesn't mean anything. You need to recode sex, or you can value label sex. I've shown how to do that in a prior video on common jump mistakes called Oops, the Oops video, under the modules for live help. So in this case, you'd want to do an analyze distribution on all 4 of your recoded quality variables. I haven't recoded the quality, but you want to do an analyze distribution on all of those by sex and make some assessments. Are males having more poor health days? Are they having more physical health days? Are they having more mental health days? Are they having lower quality of life days? And answer that question. Just make some judgments. We're not statistically testing yet. You're just making some judgments. And then finally here, question 12, if you look at this table in Microsoft Office, you look at this table in Microsoft Office, simply want you to complete the table. What is the race, N in percent for each of these categories? What is the gender, N in percent for each of these categories? On the physical and mental health variables, those 4 variables that we looked at, these 2 will be means and standard deviations, or median IQR. Limited activities are N percent, general health's N percent, and then here's the gender differences. So give me the values by mean, male and female. You will have already looked all of this up for the prior questions, but now put it in this table and upload the table. And in fact, it's easier to start with the table, and then you can go back and answer the questions. The key here is to be very methodical about your recoding. Don't take shortcuts. Take the time to recode your variables correctly, and remember to always save your data so that if you have to stop and go back in, you don't have to recode it. You will use this data again, so make sure everything is coded appropriately, and from there you can then answer the questions. We will see moving forward other ways to answer the by variable question, so race by mental health days. We'll see different ways to do that, but for now, analyze distribution by race, analyze distribution by sex, and just make some summary judgments.